Lie number one. Look at your neighbor, say lie number one. And we going in right off the jump. You ready? Here's lie number one that you may have heard. God is against sex and physical touch. Ruh-roh. You may have heard this. Do you remember the old song that you might have sang before? I'm going to pick two names, first one that come to mind. But it was something like Billy and Lucy sitting in a tree. First comes love, then comes marriage. Okay, so you know it. So this will be really easy for you. This is a song that was often sung either about you if you had a crush, or you sang it about somebody else who has a crush. And the middle school boys and girls, y'all are still singing it. That's okay. Good, praise God. I bind up Billy and Lucy sitting in a tree. But you know what's interesting to me is this. Even a song as silly as that had something profound to show you. Watch this. Do you ever remember in math class, or you're learning it, do you remember what PEMDAS was? Please excuse my, dear Aunt Sally, some of you failed math, it's okay. Dear Aunt Sally, what do those letters mean? They represent different, great, almost made it, 70%, that's a D minus. Okay, so parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, there it is. But what were those? That was called the order of operations. Okay, now see this. Billy and Lucy sitting in a tree, K-I-S-S-I-N-G. What's interesting to me is that there was an order of operations to this equation. Because here's the thing about the order of operations. If you did your own math and decided to not follow, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, you would find yourself coming to the wrong conclusion. If you just switched one of them, you could just switch subtraction with addition. You could just switch multiplication with division. You could find yourself switching a whole bunch of things up and get a completely wrong answer. And I think it's interesting because the Bible has a very clear order of operations to dating, sex, and marriage. There is a very clear path that if you by so chose to switch the order of operations, you will find yourself in a very different spot than you would have if you followed what God had said. See, God's not against sex and physical touch, but what he does have is an order of operations. And the order of operations is this, that you know God, then fall in love with another person, then build love with another person, then get married, and then be fruitful and multiply. See, not anywhere in that order of operations do I see fool around. Not anywhere in that order of operations do I see you got to test drive the car. Not anywhere in that order of operations do I see that women are like ice cream flavor, so you got to get a bunch of samples first. No. You choose whichever one you want, and that's the flavor you pick. And that's what you have, and you're married and in covenant forever with that. We're not playing games with people, with men or women, with boys. We're not playing games because God is not playing games with us. He was so gracious to us and so clear to us that he gave us a life and a roadmap, and so we should probably follow that. See, because if I love her and I commit to her, then I'm going to grow with her in righteousness, not foolishness. No, if I love him, I'm going to commit to him and grow with him in the game of life, not the game of baseball. You might catch that later. David, being someone who got his order of operations mixed up, if you didn't know this, he slept with another man's wife, one of his soldiers, and then had to come up with this whole story to get him killed, and then killed this man, and then took the wife. The order of operations, my friend, was wrong because killing was never in there, by the way. But this is what's powerful. He writes in Psalm 119, verse 9, watch this. He's saying this to his son Solomon. How can a young man keep his way pure? By guarding it according to your word. So when it comes to the lie, oh, God's just against sex and physical touch, he hates it, he doesn't want me to have any fun. Let me just tell you tonight, friend, that is not the truth. He loves it, he made it, but he created it for a purpose. And when something is used without its purpose, it either becomes useless or harmful. See, if a light bulb burnt out in my house, if I were to take a lighter or a match to go replace the light bulb, not only would that be highly dangerous, Michaela might question if I'm okay and send me somewhere. But the reality is even though lighter or a match does produce light, it is not the right purpose to put it in replacement of a light bulb. See, because that would be useless. But in the same way, bleach is really good when you're a really messy eater and you spill all over yourself. Come on, somebody. Bleach is good because what does it do? It whitens, it cleans, and it clears stains. But if you thought it would work in the same way to clean your teeth that have become yellow, that would be tragic. And it would be harmful. So when you take something and you don't use it for its purpose, it either becomes useless or harmful. And God says the same thing. If you don't keep it the way I'm calling it, if you don't keep your heart guarded against what I'm saying, when you use something that is good in and of itself for something other than its purpose, it will either become useless or harmful. Because the purpose of sex and physical touch was for man and woman in the covenant of marriage, and that is it. Watch what 1 Corinthians 7 says. Paul says this, the husband should give to his wife her conjugal rights, and likewise the wife to her husband, for the wife does not have authority over her own body, but the husband does. Likewise, the husband does not have authority over his own body, but the wife does. So do not deprive one another. Listen, God created you to be attracted. God created you to have the desire to fall in love. God created you with the interest to be affectionate and with someone of the opposite gender. And that's why you may feel like, oh, it's so hard to keep myself under control. I've got these desires. Those desires are not in and of itself bad. Because Paul is aware of this. Watch what he says 2 verses later. Verse 9, now to the unmarried and the widows I say, it is good for them to stay unmarried as I do, but if they cannot control themselves, they should marry, for it is better to marry than to burn with passion. Let me remind you of the truth that the fruit of the Spirit is self-control. See, you need to save yourself from the temptation of the evil one until you are married and are in right standing with your spouse and with God. See, God's very clear about when it comes to honoring physical touch and sex, he talks about it exclusively. Hebrews 13, marriage should be honored by all and the marriage bed kept pure, for God will judge the adulterer and the sexually immoral. 1 Corinthians 7, but because of the temptation to sexual immorality, each man should have his own wife and each woman her own husband. See, God is desiring that you have intimacy, closeness, and that two become one, but the order of operations matters.